Hey, this is Evan Mark Katz, dating coach for smart, strong, successful women, your personal trainer for love. Welcome back to the Love You podcast, where you can learn everything there is to know about dating, relationships, sex, and men from a man's point of view. My name is Evan Mark Katz. I'm thrilled to be here today with someone that I admire. I've been following her online. Her name's Adrienne Everheart, and she does something that I just can't do. I like to think I'm omnipotent as a coach, but clearly I have blind spots because she does God's work. She empowers women like you to create and maintain loving relationships. She's going to guide you through understanding feminine warmth, leaning back, why walking away works. She'll show you the power of expressing your feelings authentically so men can't resist. And today you're going to learn to be in your power, be your most alluring, build confidence, and unlock the love that you deserve. The focus of our conversation today is going to be feminine energy, and who better than Adrienne Everheart? Whether it's a real name or not, I don't care. It's perfect. So we're going to talk a little bit about feminine energy because it is such a big thing for my clients who are smart, strong, successful career women who, to be successful, they've had to adapt to a world in which being tough and proactive and right serves them well. And it's actually the secret to their success. They're forced to toggle between these two things. How do we even to start to define what feminine energy is for women who feel like women and feel feminine but might not be in their feminine energy?
Yeah. Hey, Evan. It's so great to be on your show. Thank you for that amazing introduction. You really nailed it. I help powerful dynamite women. I love to hear you putting that all in one sentence and that you show up for women in this way that also empowers them to be at their best. But yeah, I was what I considered smart, strong, successful, savvy, attractive. I was intelligent. I had a good income. I was doing all the right things on paper, but I could not keep a steady relationship with a man. I couldn't keep a steady, stable, loving relationship with a man. Even men that like I wasn't exactly sure about them. I wasn't so certain I wanted to be in a relationship with them. There's nothing worse than having a guy you're kind of not sure about dumping you and you feel like you really have a lot to offer them. And when I discovered feminine energy, that's what changed everything for me. From how I looked at life to how I felt in my body to how I spoke with men, how I spoke to everyone, especially like my parents, my siblings, close friends, how I felt in my work environment. And my whole life just expanded from something I had actually been resisting for so long because I thought that feminine energy meant you were a doormat. I thought it meant that you put your feelings aside and you did whatever the man wanted you to do or say or show up looking perfect and just be this concept of a woman that was feminine, and that really wasn't in my energy. I was growing up, I was more of a tomboy. I am definitely more of an analytical, critical thinking type of person. I loved taking apart electronics as a child. I loved a lot of boy things. And yet I was, very much sure I wanted to be with a masculine energy man, but the two just weren't working out for me. So feminine energy changed all of that for me.
So can you provide a working definition for there's people who think feminine energy is having, long hair and putting on dresses. You
Yeah.
could have long hair and put on a dress and not have any feminine energy whatsoever. So what is your definition of feminine and masculine? Because I have mine, but I certainly like to hear how you do this.
Yeah. So again, masculine energy rather came to me so naturally. Doing, fixing, solving, making things happen immediately. I mean, I am a problem solver. I learn from experience. I have a good solid IQ. I felt I was really advanced at making things happen. If I put my mind to it, I could solve a problem very quickly and any problem. I was very confident about my abilities to speak to people and make things happen immediately. Very rarely did I actually know what I was feeling in my body. In fact, I suffered with anxiety and panic attacks because so often I would be speaking with someone, making something happen, solving a problem, and my hands would just be shaking and my heart would be pounding, and I would not be present in my body. And feminine energy for me is about being present in my body, knowing what I'm feeling, being able to find what I'm feeling above judgments or quick decisions, or this isn't going the way I want it to go. I feel angry. I feel disappointed. You know, that was really more of a masculine energy response because those emotions were making me take action on that feeling. But when I really learned how to drill down on my emotions, something I call the parfait method, I was able to find that that first couple of feelings weren't always exactly on point with what I was truly feeling at the root of my body. And that was vulnerability. And vulnerability and my true essence, that's what I was hiding from men and from everyone. So I was very hard on the outside and I was a bit of a mess on the inside. So feminine energy has been about reconnecting to that inside part, that soft, gushy, warm part, and creating a rich, juicy, full life for myself. And that for me has felt so warm and inviting and connecting with this world instead of just being on the exterior. And on the exterior, I was in the dress. I did have the long hair. I did have the makeup. I had all the things, but my energy was very masculine. So feminine energy is about receiving. It's soft, it's warm. I can't stress warmth enough. You can be warm and kind to the angriest and meanest of person that you may encounter on this planet. But warmth is really a feminine energy superpower, as well as just receiving, allowing yourself to receive masculine energy, letting men do what comes very natural to them, which is to serve and make things happen and open doors and fix things and solve things for you. You don't have to do it all. You're capable of doing it all as a woman. You don't have to do it all. And you can have this more balanced relationship with your partner that way.
So how does someone know if she tips into masculine energy? Because again, this is something that we could talk about from our vantage point, but someone's listening to this and saying, I don't know that I'm a smart, strong, successful woman, but I don't feel like masculine energy. I still feel like a vulnerable human being. I still feel
Mhm.
like a warm person. How does she know if she is that way? And then what's the active corrective to that? Because I know you're not saying someone has to fundamentally change their personality. So let's do those things. Let's define how someone knows she's in her masculine and talk about a couple action steps for someone to make a subtle shift that can make a big impact on her life.
Absolutely. So, the best litmus test you can ever do as a woman is ask yourself, why am I saying this? Why am I saying this to my partner? Why am I saying this to my kids? Why am I about to say this to my mom or whoever? Why am I speaking these words I'm saying? What am I hoping will happen? Asking yourself that set of questions will tell you if you are trying to get someone to do something. You're manipulating the relationship, you're manipulating the outcome, you're making something happen. I work with women all the time where I have to get them clarity, what I call diamond girl clarity. Yes, I compare women to diamonds with feminine energy. And clarity is one of those aspects because that clarity allows you to see, what am I actually trying to make happen in this situation? Whose cosmic karmic journey am I trying to control? Or am I emotionally present in the relationship and finding out what I truly feel? So, a good example of this is a man who doesn't do or say what the woman wants. I mean, how many times do women run into that scenario in a given day? He didn't load the dishwasher right. He didn't pick up the right thing from the grocery store. He didn't say the right words to me. He didn't call me back. He didn't open the door for me. The list goes on and on of all the things he didn't do right for me. And we're really saying something in response to an outcome that we believe should be happening. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't have your boundaries and you don't know how to speak up for yourself and have the clarity to know if someone's actions and behaviors aren't in alignment with yours. But please raise your hand if you're perfect all the time. None of us show up perfectly all the time. So, feminine energy is about having that flexibility, the clarity. Is this a one time event? Is this a pattern? Is this really what I want in a relationship? And what is it that I'm really feeling about this person? How am I trying to control the outcome versus what am I really feeling in this moment? So let's use the example of the guy who you have a great couple of dates with him. Everything's feeling wonderful, and you never hear from him again. And the woman wants to reach out, call him because his birthday is coming up. It never fails. The guy's always got a birthday right around the corner. Or you want to reach out to his mom and make sure he's okay. So your purpose of reaching out to his mom might be that you actually really have met the lady and really love her and care about her. You may genuinely want to wish this guy happy birthday. But behind all of that, there's a motive. I want to send a little, hey, I'm still here. Remember me, how wonderful I am? And that is absolutely getting in the way of the journey and the process and taking action to intercept that. And this is where my most favorite phrase is lean back, let it unfold. Because when you lean back and let it unfold, you don't get into anyone's cosmic karmic journey. You're not controlling, you're not manipulating, you have a ton more energy, and you can identify more with your feelings in your body versus how can I manipulate and finally dial in and tune in this person to create the outcome that I'm seeking or that I want.
May I ask a question?
Of course.
And it's on behalf of the women who are listening to this, and you've been doing this work for a while. You understand how this can be received, um, uh, and I want to give voice to the doubts because I believe in the principle, and I think that sometimes the language rubs people wrong. So we don't want to manipulate guys, right? This is the first part. We don't want to manipulate guys. Um, but what happens when a guy is doing something you don't like, right? And there's gradations on that. There's genuine bad behavior, or there's, hey, he just doesn't think like me, act like me. So there's various gradations on that. But it sounds like it's let things be, don't try to control them. It's really like let go of control that easily tips over perception wise into passivity. So, how do we find what that line is between he did X, Y, and Z that I don't like? Notice what you say is a reaction to him. You don't want to spend all your time criticizing a man. That's not going to improve your relationship. How do people find that line about what you do speak up about
Yeah.
instead of just letting it be and not manipulating his karmic journey?
Yeah. Boundaries.
But
Knowing
that's
your,
a word, but what's
yeah.
the application of that? Because again, agree in theory as someone who's a man who knows what works on men, feminine energy is a real thing, but it feels so vague. And it feels
Mhm.
like you're telling women who are opinionated and have gotten everywhere in life by trying to control their environment, let
Yeah.
go of control.
Yeah.
And so then how much do we let go of control?
Well, you're absolutely right. Boundaries is a word. It can be very nuanced. It can be a slippery slope. So let me use an example. I had a client not too long ago. Um, she was dating a man very much into, he had created this swing for her daughter on a tree in the backyard. And she had told him or had wanted to tell him, this doesn't look very stable. And she said, so Adrienne, I leaned back and I let it unfold. I let my child get on the swing and fall out of it because the limb broke. It wasn't stable enough. I was like, well, that's not really leaning back and letting it unfold. That's leaning back and putting your child at harm. Or that's leaning back and letting something that your gut or your higher self needs to step in about. So there's two different things. First, the logical mind always has to happen. That's about self-preservation, that's about safety, that's about knowing that this feels wrong for me. The second part is you come in with the emotion and you come in and say, am I being overly critical? Is this absolutely important? Is this detrimental to my spiritual, emotional, physical well being? We go to the very essence of boundaries. So you're looking at a swing that you can tell it's rickety, it's not put together in a way that your mind thinks will sustain the weight of your child. You say something. You say something, even if it floors the guy's ego. If it floors the guy's ego and he can't handle that you've criticized his swing, you say something like, this is where you go to the logical mind, the problem solving. Use a little bit of feminine. It's about balancing. Oh, it's so sweet that you've created a swing for my daughter. Would you mind testing it out first? I want to make sure it will hold her weight. And if it holds your weight, would you mind testing it out first? And make the guy get on the swing if he's so proud of it and it's going to work, let him try it out first. So first, the logical mind has to do its job, self-preservation, finding out, does this work for me? Then comes the emotional part, which is, what am I really truly feeling in this situation? So we can use any type of example in terms of that, in knowing how to find what you feel, lean back, let it unfold. The guy gets on the swing drops. Oh my goodness, are you okay? We've leaned back and let it unfold. But we can apply this, paradigm to almost any situation. And you're always going to have a way to meet any problem, any situation with feminine energy warmth, expressing how you feel, knowing your boundaries, and leaning back and letting it unfold.
So let's talk about once again the practical application of it. You talked about privately. You talked about one of your most popular podcasts, 500 Ways to Talk to a Man. Sounds like it could be a very long podcast, but the idea that there's scripts, there's a tone, there's a methodology to how to take all of the stuff that you're thinking and feeling and translate it into such a way that is digestible to a guy. The best book I ever read on this was Kiss Your Fights Goodbye by Dr. Jamie Turndorf. I don't know if you ever read that, but it's great. I couldn't recommend it more. But I'd love to hear your version of examples of how to translate. I don't like what you're doing. I need
Mm-hmm.
you to hear me. Change
Mm-hmm.
your behavior into something that he could digest or process. Or maybe that's not a thing. But I think this is what anybody who's listening is gonna react to.
No, it's totally a thing. It happens all the time, I can tell you. Um, so here's the 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 biggest point, the biggest takeaway in all of this is that communication with most men doesn't work so great. It really, how men's brains, it's been scientifically shown men process language and communication a lot differently than women. By the end of this podcast, if there were an application that could tell you how much I spoke versus how much you have spoken, even though I'm being the one interviewed, I'm going to win almost every time. A woman speaks more, I think it's 4 times more than a man. So, one of the things I get a woman to do is get much more succinct. I tell her to cut it in half again, and find what you want to say. So, I've missed a few steps in that process, but going into this process, being succinct and coming to a man and trying to reason with him, explain to him why you feel the way you feel and what you hope would happen, it's going to come across as criticism. So instead, we're learning how to find what we feel. Something very simple, such as your guy's getting angry a lot, he's moody a lot, he's snapping at you, you're feeling belittled by this. You can go into how you feel. Wow, you just now, I feel so small being spoken to that way. So one of the most important things we've done is we've taken out the word you. I feel so small when you speak to me this way is much different than, wow, I'm feeling really small right now. What's going on? So a problem is just a question that hasn't been answered or asked yet. So let me say that again. A problem is a question that has not been asked yet. So if your partner is upset, acting out, or doing something that's really bothering you, how you feel, and then what's going on here? And then you may begin to hear from the man what he's feeling and understand men process emotions at a faster rate. They can have their, I believe it's called their kickoff rate of emotion is much more faster than women. I think Dr. John Gottman had, I'm basing this on research he had done in the past on a man's startup emotion, his startup with his emotions. So he can start up very quickly. You as a woman know that's my masculine energy partner. They can have a very quick start.
Is that
You
like a
have
quick to anger?
sometimes quick to anger, quick to response. For a man, getting angry is sometimes how they solve a problem. That's the fastest route. Early on in my relationship with my husband, I would tell him about, before we were married, I would have a problem. And he'd go, well, let's just not talk about it. Because if we don't talk about it, the problem goes away. So we've solved the problem, you see, in the masculine energy mind. That's the shortest route to solving the problem. You just don't talk about it. You don't speak about it anymore.
Clearly, that's counterproductive.
Yeah, definitely. So this is where the woman has to be heard, be seen, feel like she can have an adult conversation with her partner. Is he going to be the same as your therapist? No. Is he the same as your girlfriend, your mom, your best friend? No. He's going to respond in the way that he's capable of responding. So know your jumping off place, know your starting place with your partner. What are they really capable of? I will tell you recently, my husband and I lost our home to fire, and his emotional availability for me, from who he was even a year ago to now, we're just 3 months into this. He is a vastly different person in how he responds to emotional needs, how he can speak to me. And emotions aren't something that we just sweep under the rug. They're something we speak about, we talk about openly. So if your guy is not able to listen to you, he shuts you down, he gets quick to anger, you can let him know how you feel. You can always ask a really good question, such as, what's going on here? Or what's happening here? Hey, what just happened? That's one of my favorites. Hey, what just happened here? And find what you're feeling. I'm feeling really small. I'm feeling really anxious when things get loud. And here's my most powerful tool I teach: walk away. Know when to walk away, know when to give it up. The guy has a quick emotional startup, know when to walk away. Honey, I'd love to I'd love to speak with you about this more. I'm going to go take a little walk around the block. Give a man some time. Silence is your friend. If you get quiet around a man after he's just gotten loud, and then you also give yourself some distance, he's going to know what's up. He's going to feel that distance and that silence. Most men will. And they'll come around a little bit hat in hand and want to fix the new problem, which is their wife is not speaking as much, or their partner has turned and is just kind of looking out the window as they drive down the road. She's not engaging anymore with him. She's taking that space. The man comes along and fills up the space. He problem solves that. He comes back to you and says, hey, why are you so quiet now? What happened? Well, a few minutes ago I felt really small. I felt snapped at. And I always I'm not expecting perfection. I know we're going to get angry. I know we're not always going to be the perfect partner to each other, but I'd really like to work on how we address each other when we're upset. What do you think? And you form it in a question, a way that the man can solve the problem.
I get that. And that that sounds like a decent workaround for a certain type of stereotypical guy on predictable forms of conflict and communication. The issue that I have with that, which again is not to say that it's not good advice for how to handle that guy, I believe there's sort of like a higher plane of relationships and communication where, the answer to this is like create the space, right? Give him the silent treatment. He's going to come to you to repair it. That actually psychologically that does work. If anything, I would want women to choose men who are less quick to anger, who are more likely to apologize, who are more likely to be good at conflict resolution that doesn't require this level of game playing. I mean, but it's certainly you have a full understanding of how this works. And
Yeah.
I try to steer people into relationships where this level isn't even necessary because your guy does talk to you more like a good girlfriend, right? He's more has greater social capabilities, greater empathy, and greater understanding. Does that make any sense? So it's not to say that
Totally.
it's not good advice. It's like, hey, if you've got a guy who is a stunted alpha male and you're trying to make the best of the situation, this is how you make the best of the situation.
There's a lot of truth in that. Yes. I had boyfriends in my life who were amazing listeners, who always came to me, apologized first, who were just, I mean, they would have made the most wonderful husbands. I got bored with them. I got very bored with them. I found them very feminine. They wanted to talk
Right.
about feelings more than me.
Got it. So this is the cost of if you're going to be with that kind of guy, this is the best way to roll.
In most cases. Now, I will tell you that even the best guys that I've ever had in my life who were very soft and understanding and sweet and kind that I also got bored with. And then maybe there's some, underlying DNA magic going on in that moment that may or may not be toxic, but I just found that I wanted more of a masculine energy partner
Sure.
and that it was going to come with some of these characteristics.
Sure.
However, we're all capable of evolving. We're all capable of tuning in and dialing up the love and the warmth we have in our hearts. And I believe in leading by example.
I love it. Can
Mm.
I ask a follow-up question? Because again, I know your time is tight, but this is I think it's a great place to leap off of instead of to leave. But um, uh, relationships with alphas, because they're so strong, because they're the sun and everybody's a planet revolving around them to some degree, um, require a great deal of compromise. For some masculine energy women, that's really hard to do. They're attracted to that guy, but they're both so strong, nobody acquiesces. And they think this is where it comes from.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to be with that. I wrote this in my second book. You want the Marlboro man, you also want the sensitive artist, and it's not
Yeah.
the same guy,
No.
right? So I'm always sort of nudging people to closer to the guy in the middle because it's a lower conflict relationship and you could express yourself. I'm trying to figure out for the people who are listening to this podcast, you're providing a paradigm, which is a really, really useful paradigm. And it sits just on the other side of the paradigm that I'm offering, which is good relationships should be fundamentally easy. You shouldn't fundamentally have to change who you are,
Yes.
your communication style. And if you are a masculine energy woman and a direct communicator who likes to take
Yeah.
control and wants things as they want them, you need a guy who's a little bit more of a yes guy. And no, but this is my point. I'm not saying you do, Adrienne. I'm
Hmm.
saying
Hmm.
like it will be a little less friction, it'll be a little less turmoil, it might be a little bit less attraction, but it'll be a lot easier. And so then you have a choice. Either I have to kind of work with myself to put on my feminine energy hat even though I want to strangle him, or I have a guy who I don't feel the need to strangle and it's just a little calmer, but I can express all my opinions. And then it's how do I express my opinions in a way that it's better received. So Can you see how we're kind of like on the same, we're speaking sort of the same language, but we're just on slightly different sides of it?
Oh, absolutely. Because it's at the end of the day, it's a power struggle. And you can have a power struggle with your partner, masculine, feminine energy, put it all aside. It's a power struggle. I want things my way. No, I want things my way. If you
Right.
put
So
two
if you're
people in a room together long enough, you're going to find conflict. Someone's going to get selfish, someone's going to want it their way. And you have to be willing to negotiate around this. But also, I mean, I am a strong masculine energy woman. I still can bring a guy emotionally to his knees pretty quickly. I know how to do this. It's in me. It's inherent and it's there as a bit of a safety mechanism,
Mhm.
you know? And a lot of powerful dynamite women, the reason they are so powerful and dynamite is that we have had a lot of experience dealing with people who want to take advantage of us
So
or
then
have
you take control. Like, hey,
take control.
you're
Yeah.
not the boss of me.
Yeah.
And there's a downside to to being in control because then you're going to find any guy who lets you have all that control, you're not going to respect.
Yeah, well, or someone who's just a drone. I think of that stingless drone. You know, we want someone who has a little sting. We want some spice. We don't want a robot. And one of my most popular phrases is that a healthy love is often a boring love. It's boring because you've come from the background. If you've come from the background of highs and lows and highs and lows, and you've been on a roller coaster, and your dad was had you on a roller coaster, or your mom had you on a roller coaster, or worse, both parents did. And then you go to have a relationship with someone and you're used to the roller coaster. And so you actually seek out a partner who's going to be the roller coaster ride instead of seeking out a partner that is more in alignment with your core desires, your core requirements. So while I do steer women towards finding a man that is in alignment with their core requirements and their core desires, you're also going to have men that so often behave like men and they have the difference between the sperm and the egg. The sperm is very active. It's going after what it wants. It stops at nothing. The egg sits and waits. It sits and waits and trusts. And there's just so much behind that symbolism to how we can operate in our physical bodies. But also, again, we're expanding and contracting as human beings and as in a relationship. So you're going to have seasons. You're going to have seasons of your relationship where your partner is in a bad mood for a solid couple of months because they're going through something. You're going to have seasons. You're not going to be at your best. If you're stressed out, you might take it out on your partner a little bit. And so we have to be willing to just kind of go with the flow, lean back, give our partners a little space to work this out. So this is where we go back to boundaries, which is how long am I willing to endure this? Am I suffering or am I enduring it? Now, if you're suffering, this is where you need to have a good long talk with yourself about your core requirements in your relationship, what it is you truly want, how you want a partner to show up. For me, a big one was I don't want a guy who yells. No yellers. If I was on a date with a guy and he got upset about something, a car cut him off in traffic, he yelled, that's it. Never going to see you again. You've just yelled. And then I met a man, I met my husband actually, and he was not my type. I usually went for a darker type of guy. Um, and he was Midwestern and very fair skinned and light hair and very different than any other type of man I had met or even dated. And so I found that if I actually dated someone that I wasn't drawn to, I dated a different type of man that even though there were still problems with both types of guys, if I dated outside of what was familiar, I actually ended up attracting a more stable, solid partnership.
That's right. Now we've converged our worlds into the same world. Um, Adrienne Everheart, Thank you so much for your time, for your attention, for talking through something that is genuinely complicated and nuanced. And uh, I think it's valuable. Like I think anybody who's listening to this is has gotten a broad perspective on how an individual can make many choices to lead them to happiness. And it's always about what works best for you. You can find Adrienne. She's got a big YouTube channel. She's got 170,000 followers. You could find her on there. She's on Instagram, Adrienne Everheart, Facebook, Adrienne Everheart. Her website is everheartcoaching.com. Adrienne, is there anything you would like to tell anybody or promote before we say goodbye today?
Yeah, first off, thank you so much for having me, Evan. You're an amazing interviewer, and we're really lucky to have you. And if you want to learn more about me and feminine energy, again, feminine energy was a word I was just like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, I don't need feminine energy. I was really against it, but I hope that I can help a lot of women just get in touch with that side of their being. So I do have a free gift at my website, everheartcoaching.com/free gift. I have pretty much a weekly podcast and YouTube channel. So check out my little free gift, see if it speaks to you, and you can explore more with me and my private coaching group or my online courses.
Andrew, that's amazing. Thank you so much for appearing with me here today. Um, my name is Evan Markatz. This is the Love You Podcast. If you have enjoyed today's podcast or are a regular listener, please subscribe on Spotify, on Apple, on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a positive review. I read them. It helps us with the algorithm. I am looking forward to coming back with another guest next week. It'll be a surprise. And I can't wait for our next conversation. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sticking with me and sticking with these really interesting, difficult conversations. They're valuable to me because I always learn from every time I have one of these conversations as well. I hope you do too. Thanks and have a great week.